Hey guys, welcome back to another video with HP Tuners. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Tony Gonyon and I'm the North American Ford Gas Sales Manager. I've been tuning for almost 40 years. I'm excited to talk about the powerful VCM Scanner software. If you're new to HP Tuners software, specifically the VCM Scanner, you're in the right place because we're going to walk you through all of the basics of using VCM Scanner. Plus, I'm going to answer some specific questions you guys have sent to us on social media and by email about VCM Scanner. So make sure you're following us and are subscribed to our emails if you want to submit your questions to us. Okay, let's get started. Today we're going to use a Ford F-150 Raptor for our scanner testing. The Ford Raptor is the most popular F-150 out there in the Baja vehicles as well as the daily drivers. We can even tune your UTV that you carry with this Raptor. Let's get started. Going to get our laptop set up. We're all plugged in. Our MPVI 3 is all plugged in, and we're all set to go. The first thing we're going to do is we're actually going to download the software from the beginning. So I'll show you the whole process. Okay? We're going to go to the website, hptuners.com. Downloads. There's a couple things on the download page. You notice on the left-hand side, the VCM Suite Information. We call the stable version. That's our normal public version. We do have a beta version, and whenever you're doing late model vehicles and your stuff is updating daily, we use the beta version. I highly recommend the beta when you're doing late model vehicles for that reason. So we're going to download the beta version first. That's going to take about a minute to download. There's one other thing we download for the MPVI 2s and 2 pluses, and that's the actual drivers. And we'll download those as well, just in case. So our beta version has actually downloaded now. We'll go ahead and skip over and download the drivers, just in case. You can see those right there, MPVI 2 drivers. We'll download the drivers. Drivers are downloading. It's a zip file, so when it's done, which it is, you double click on it, it'll actually run it. There's the setup right there. We'll extract it from the zip file. The next function, accept the agreement. If you don't accept it, it's not going to run and you're not going to be able to tune with it. It updated the drivers. The driver is now updated and ready to run. Now we'll actually go to our download. And there is our beta version. We're going to download that beta version and run it. Accept it. If you don't accept it, you can't tune with it. And hit the install button. It's a pretty quick install. And I'll show you a little tip once it's installed to make it easier for it in the future to tune. Yes. And finish. It is now there. Now, to access it, what I recommend that you do, if you go to your C drive, Program Files, and HP Tuners, you're going to have the file there. There's the beta version, and they'll come up with the editor and the scanner. I personally recommend that you go ahead and pin it to your taskbar. Right click, pin to taskbar, scanner, pin to taskbar. Now, you'll notice they're both at the bottom of the screen, so whenever I go to do something, it's there for easy access. We downloaded the scanner and the editor, the drivers, we're all set to begin tuning. The very first thing we're going to do is open the scanner software. Double click on it. If you're in the vehicle, make sure you turn the ignition on. It's going to come up with a note that says you're accepting it as a beta version. It warns you it's a beta version. In order to use it, you still got to use it. So just hit OK. Scanner opens up in the format it shows. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to figure out if this vehicle has any DTCs. That's the most important part. The scanner gives you all the details of everything that's happened in this engine. To me, it's the most important part because without it, you can't diagnose the problems. So when you first get into a vehicle, your vehicle or a customer's vehicle, when you've actually brought it up and you start the scanner, the first thing you do is click on the car button. You'll see a little car up here, connect the vehicle. You hit that connect right there, it's going to pull the vehicle. What it's doing is pulling the actual data in the ECM for PIDs, okay? So with those PIDs, it actually brings up, and you can see, right, engine RPM, engine speed, coolant temp, for this vehicle. And at the top, it says connected, 2018 Ford Series F-150 Raptor. So with that being said, we're gonna go ahead and take a look if there's any codes that this engine has. Click on the little check engine light right there, and the bottom read DTCs. If it has any DTCs, it's gonna show up. In this case, hey, we've hit the jackpot, no DTs detected. That means we're good to go. Now there's one other thing we can do to see if this has it as well, and I'm going to show you that as well. Right now I'm just going to exit out of here, and I'm going to come up here, this little blue symbol with an I in it, okay? When you hit VCM Suite Info, and you click on that little I, it's going to pull the vehicle. It's also going to pull any of the file, any of the stuff that's there, but at the very bottom of it, if you follow at the bottom, you'll notice if there's any codes there, any DTCs, it will show up. In this case, there's none, so none showed up. That's the two ways if you want to see that. Okay? If you want to save that for future reference, you can hit your save information. Now you might need to use that when you're sending in a support ticket. I'll ask for an info log, debug file, which we'll go over in the future. But the info log is save it to that. I recommend always save it with the date that you're doing it. And that way you have it. So, all right, that's VCM Info. If you're tuning on a UTV and you go to use the scanner function, before you do anything, you have to plug in the adapter cable for the OBD2, so you can plug in your MPVI 3. Okay, we've covered downloading, we've covered checking our DTCs, but now we're gonna go through something I affectionately call buttonology, okay? So we're gonna go through a little button information. And just across the screen, just as an overview of what we have here so you understand it. The first one on top says log file. If you click on that, to open a log file, if you have a previous log file, you click on that, it allows you to open up the log file. If we have a log file open, we can click on the close log file to close the log file. And save log file as. Very important, if we had a log here, which we're gonna do here in a minute, as you save the file or save the log, you can go back and look at it later on. Now, don't panic. If you ever forget to save your log, you can always go to this function right here. I'm gonna show you. You're gonna go to your folder, your documents, you go to HP Tuners, you're going to go to your scanner or your logs, and any logs you have will show up in order. If you click on date modified, it's going to show you from the latest log. So don't fret, it's still there. Every log that you have is recorded. That's an important thing, by the way, because so many people panic when they lose a log, they don't realize that that's saved in there. So. All right. The next one on here is we have the export log file. So if you have it, you can export that to a CSV file for other software to look at or in any other type of format, an Excel spreadsheet or whatever else you may want to look at that, you can use the export function. Recent logs, just like I said, it's going to show any recent logs that you had. And exit, of course, would exit out. Very simple on that one. The next one, vehicle. So connected to the vehicle, which we are connected right now. And the next one on there would be disconnect. So we can do it from here, hit disconnect there, or I can just stop the car, disconnect from the vehicle. So what I tell people is this: if you're driving the car and you want to get out of it, you want to stop the car, right? So just stop the car before you try to read or write again, okay? The next one will be your vehicle profiles. Now, let's say you have a vehicle that you've never seen before. We have a vehicle profile list in there that you can select a vehicle to look at, or every time you add one of the vehicles to it, you can put in your vehicle profile list, okay? That allows you to open up, get a base log that you can look at or build a file from. Repoll for supported parameters. Now, if you just connected to the vehicle and you went away and you came back, you unplugged it, plugged it back in, I recommend you always repoll. What that does, it'll actually repoll all the PID data from the PCM so that you have it and it's updated. Because sometimes it will lose sync if you're getting and unplugging the car, so always repoll it if that's the case. Start scanning, simple button, hit that button right there, or you can hit the red button here to start the scanning. Two different places to do it. Stop scanning, same thing, stop scanning, stops it from scanning. Diagnostics Info, that's the part right here. So I'm going to go ahead and go through this here with you on the Diagnostics Info. Let me go ahead and start a log. So what I've done is I actually hit the red button and started a log, right? Never hit the red button, but I just hit the red button. Okay, so we started the log. It's going across there. Now, if I go from the information, I've got right here the disconnect, start scanning, stop scanning, and I've got the Diagnostics Info. When I click on that, that gives me the same DTC menu as we had before. We can actually read it, we can clear DTCs, and of course exit out of it. You did notice one thing there. I'll bring this up. So the one other sheet here is a freeze frame function. So if you have any freeze frame, so if you had something and you're driving at a catastrophic failure or something happened, the freeze frame data may be there. It's going to show up in that freeze frame data. Okay, so carrying on our list, we have our MPVI 1 data logging. So we're using MPVI 3. This will obviously change here since we've had to data logging. This is to set up your actually standalone data logging, which we're going to talk about here at the end of this. We're going to talk about how to set this up. For right now, this is where we will go to set up the data logging, okay? We'll come back to this later on and go through it. The next one, the layout. So layout, you can open a layout. The layout is basically how you've stuff defined. So you can save a layout. So we can call this one, say, Raptor 1, all right? And that saves as Raptor 1. Then if we go back to open it, we can go to layout, open layout, and open out layer Raptor 1. It would bring out everything we have set up, all right? And we'll show you we can change stuff in the layout and we save it. That way, whenever you open up a file again to do a Raptor, it's already saved for you. Recent layouts, select that. It's going to bring up recent layouts that you have. It gives you a list of them. You can go across it to pick where they're at, okay? Default layouts. Diagnostics, diagnostic single plane, racing. We've got a couple of them built in there for you already so that it minimizes where the lambda is and everything else. It's a great tool just to go in there for a default. It's already set up for you just to see it. Click on it and see. Go ahead and click on diagnostics, and it'll actually bring one up. It shows you airflow in kilograms. Now, that's the other thing. So airflow and map, we can do it in pounds per minute. We can do it in grams per second, grams per cylinder, all the different things in AFR, same way. We can select those in lambda as well. Lambda we've talked about before. We'll talk about it more in a future video. Add to layout. Right now I have graph, chart, and gauge. We have the three of them on there, all right? So if you wanted to add something, if you had to add another gauge to it, you could do that, or another graph, or track map, or steering angle, things from that drive cycle, we can do that too. And that would bring up this data over here. Drive cycle shows you when you're driving it, duration of it. It's going to show you all the speed stuff there. It's a great reference, especially like if you're in a circle track or doing oval racing, or even in the chicanes. You can get the data right there from this data, all right? You want to come out of it, just erase out of it. That's it. Super simple to bring that. If you wanted that to stay on there, you could save the layout with that there. And then lock layout, if you lock the layout, it'll lock it so that no one can change it. You can't change it. You can inadvertently deselect it. That's a good thing to have if you're actually going across there and you click on it. It'll stop you from actually just taking it off the screen. Tools, we got a unit conversion. So on the unit conversion, you got everything here from temperature from Fahrenheit to Celsius, your speed from mile per hour to kilometers. Obviously, Americans are too stupid to use a metric system. I didn't say that, by the way. Pressure differences. One thing for tire size, you put the tire size in here, and 50, 15. And it shows you that the height is 27.8 inches. So you can put that data in there and it gives you the information if you're doing a speedometer calibration as well. That information would come into play, okay? So lots of things right here in unit conversion, which is a great tool. We have a calculator. If you need a calculator to change something, we have access to that. Doing your simple math, you can use it as well. Math parameters, okay. So we have some built in here already, whether we're using airflow, and these are some that we've already built right here. So if you got boost, you want to use this, you double click on it, the math is already done for you. There's the ID, there's the name of it, the abbreviation for it. It tells you what the boost is with baro reference because you have mat pressure and baro pressure. So if you take your actual pressure minus your baro pressure, that gives you boost. And that's exactly what they did here in the math, okay? We can go in depth on that more in a future video. For right now, it just gives you the basics of how to use these, okay? If you have other ones on there, when you're doing your lambda versus AFR, your EQ ratio error, you can see the math involved in this. And again, we can talk about this in a future video. Right now, this shows you where things are based in here to find them. Next, with quantities and units, this is another thing. So if you check on, like, give an example, a electric current, you've got ambient and you've got the milliamp So it gives you the ID numbers for those. Those are ID numbers you're going to use when you put this stuff in when you're doing the math parameters. Again, we're going to go into this more in depth in a future video, but for right now, just understand this is where the ID numbers come from, and we have a selection of all of the currents and stuff in there. Okay? Next one's options. Obviously, we have the language. We now have a new selection. We can actually pick the language, whether it's Arabic or Polish or Spanish. This is a new addition to our software, which is great for our bilingual community. Just pick the one that you want to see in the language you want to use, and you select it, and you're good. So the next one I'm talking about is the help menu. Very important menu on here. This is where help. You can actually go in there and notice there's a quickie key if you want to go to the help menu, F1. It'll take you there as well. Resync interface, very important to resync. You saw us do that at the beginning of this. Whenever you swap cables, whenever you swap devices, when you go in and out, use the Resync interface to actually resync the interface and get the data. It'll also do for your credits, so when you're by purchase credits, it actually shows up on there as well. And there's any firmware updates, that'll also come up to play as well. VCM Suite Information, just like the little blue symbol with the eye, when you click on that, it's going to populate it. It's going to show you everything that's on that, how many credits are on it, how many credits used, and if there were any DTCs that would show up in the bottom if the key's turned on in the vehicle. Okay. MPVI 1 application keys. Just if you have an MPVI 1, this is where you show your key at. Not a big deal at that point. MPVI 2 verification code. So this will actually show the actual serial number for the device, and it shows you the verification code. So if you want to buy credits from somewhere on that's selling credits and they're a dealer of ours, you could actually go in there and provide information to them, and then they can actually put you in their system and sell you credits as well. So that's the number they would have to add you to their database. Last but not least, the about. Very important. So if there's an updated beta version, which happens 2 to 3 times a day sometimes, it will show up here where it says no update found on this one. If it was there, it would say there's an update. It would give you a little block. You would check on it, and it would actually update for you. I updated a few minutes ago before we started this, so you can see we're at 4.13.273 beta, and by this afternoon, there'll probably be another one up here as well. Some things are added every day. We're actually looking to have some stuff added right now while we're doing this, so hopefully it'll show up in this afternoon, and we'll go through the steps. So the next one we're going to talk about the actual buttons on the screen. The first one right here is the actual open log file. I'm going to go ahead and open one up. We're going to open up Raptor 1 here, and you see the data that shows up on the screen. You see here we got our gauge format, our chart versus time, and our graphs. Okay, so right over here we have the next one on there would be save log file as. So if we had this log and it was a new log and want to save it, save log file as. We could call it Raptor 2 if we wanted to from the next file. Okay, there we go. We don't have to do it. We're going to skip that. All right, so the next one would be actually close log file, which we can close log file. Now we're blank screen. We want to connect to the vehicle to start recording. We connect to the vehicle by selecting the car. That connects to the vehicle. You'll see it pull the vehicle. It brings up all the parameters on the left-hand side that's in there. We're going to talk about adding channels here in just a few minutes as well. Stopping or disconnecting from the vehicle. Like I said, when you want to get out of the car, you need to stop the car. So stop the car so you can disconnect from the car. Red button is what starts the scanning. So you hit that button, it's going to start scanning. It pulls everything again and brings up the data that's there. As you can see, this is an actual live function. You see it right there. Okay. I just stopped it. The next one right here would be stop scanning, which I just did. And then we have the diagnostic information. If we were plugged into it right now, we were connected, that's going to show up. I'll go ahead and show you that again. There's our little check engine symbol, Diagnostics and Info. You click on that. That's got our DTC and readiness tests. Read DTCs. We don't have any DTCs showing up. That's a good thing. We have our vehicle controls and special functions. All right, we're going to go through that more here in the future. We have our play log file. So if we go back and we open up a log file, so we'll stop this for a second. We'll open up the Raptor 1 file. And if we want to play it back, we can actually go up here. And you notice on the bottom down here, we have a slide bar. This slide bar is actually showing us a time frame from the beginning to end of what was recorded. All right. So if I'm at the beginning here and I just want to play it back, I can hit play log file. I can even make it a faster or slower speed. In this case, I could go 10 to 1 and it shoots right across. I could go back to slow it down, 0.5, and it goes across so we can see it from there. So that's how we play it back right there. Stop the playback, you just stop it. So looking at this right here, chart versus time, So if I actually bring this back, you notice it's the small screen. I actually can enhance it. So if I want to see one spot right here, I can enhance that spot. It's a zoom function, if you want to call it that, and we can unzoom it by the minus. Okay, super simple. The next one is your open layout. So if I want to change a layout, I can open layout. I've got different layouts here. Scanner Raptor layouts are right there. I could select that and that brings up my Raptor layout. So that's opening a scanner layout. This is save layout. So if you've got that function up there and you've changed a bunch of stuff and you want to use it for future reference, save layout as Raptor 2. So now when you open up and go to data log another Raptor, you have Raptor 2 ready to go. Your layout's perfect for how you set it up. And last but not least is our actual VCM Suite Info. The VCM Suite Info, again, gives us our data. Like we said before, you pull it, it actually gives us all the data from the device itself and the vehicle information. There's the engine ECM controls. It shows the TCM controls as well. All right, this is the stuff you'd use when you send a support ticket in, or if you're having a problem and you want to figure out how many credits you have, or if any DTCs showed up there from the info log, show up as well. Okay, those are all the top buttons across there. We've covered our buttons across the top. We've covered our mid buttons here. And now we're actually going to talk about the channels. So recent channel configs. If I select the recent channel configs, obviously I have several on here, all kinds of stuff from the Raptors, Coyotes, different vehicles. I could pick one of those for a vehicle I'm using. So that's where we would select a new channel config. We can open one from the SAE defaults. SAE Society of Automotive Engineers has a default PID list, and that would come up with whatever's there. Or what I like is to load vehicle defaults. If you've never looked at one of the cars before, load the vehicle defaults, see what's there, what's added, what it shows up in the defaults, and get you going right off the bat. All right? In this case, we can open up a channel config. I can select one of the ones I got. In this case, we get the default Raptor one. I've already got it set. Simple process. If you modified this and you've added channels to it, which I'm going to show you here in a second, I would save it right there. Now, this little gear right here with the plus is very important. So what this does, I'm connected to the car, the ignition's on, and I've pulled the vehicle. When I connect that, it's going to show me every PID that is associated with this PCM that it can pull. So on the engine side, you'll notice right here, we got our general stuff. We got the ones that are highlighted are the ones that we're actually looking at. In this case, I want to know what the engine oil pressure is. I could double click for the oil pressure. You notice it came right up on the screen right here. All right. So I can go in there and check the next one. If you have, let's see, we'll figure a fuel one. Since we're looking at wide bands, we can come in here at wide bands, fuel source, open closed loop, oxygen sensors. There's our wide bands, which are selected. Just so you know, your Fords 2011 up have wide bands on board. You want to use those. You don't have to import a wideband through your ProLink. It's already here, ready to go, so you can data log it. All right. So I select that at oil pressure when it shows up there. When I actually start the scanner, if I started the vehicle, it would show me the actual oil pressure if it's available for me. So you can see right now I'm not running the vehicle, but later on we'll actually do a format where we're data logging. You see the engine oil pressure would show up there, as well as vehicle speed and any other PID that you want to select. We're asking about what broadcast parameters are. So if you notice right here, when you go to your channel selector, you've got a selection here. You got your polling channels and you've got your actually broadcast channels. If you select that one right there, only the ones that are broadcast channels are going to show up. And you can see the list right there. All right. So if you select one of those from that list, that's your actually broadcast. If you select this one, this is your actually polling channels. It's talking back and forth to the PCM. The other one is actually just broadcasting out from the PCM all the time. And that's the difference between broadcast and polling. One of the things you can do when you're doing a channel selector, you can actually select the alphabetical order. So everything will come up in alphabetical order and you can pick it from there in case you want to find it. In case you don't want to do that, you could actually just type in what you want to look at. Say you want to look at ambient, type in ambient and it actually goes to the letter. If you want to look at load, type in load and it brings it up from there. So whatever you type in, the text format there will show up for you as well. Numbers wise, same thing. There's numbers associated with it. There's the codes for it on the left-hand side. Those are the PID IDs. It shows you the numbers if you want to get it that way. Okay. And the channel selector, those tools I just talked about, make it easier to find things when you're looking for it, to add the channels and set up, your channel format to what you want to do. Now, the next question is, hey, if I want to delete a channel, what do I do? I got all this stuff on the left-hand side. What do I do? It's pretty much simple. You can come over here on the right-hand side, remove channel. We just took that channel off of there. Super simple to do at that point. Now, one thing that's very important to remember when you're working on your channels format, everything in the left-hand side of your channels list has to be in there for it to be seen over in your graph, your chart versus time, or your gauge format. But it has to be put there first. So whatever you put in there can be seen over here. And what I mean by that is, let's take an example like our chart versus time. If we have speed over here, you see we have speed, engine coolant temp, we can actually put engine coolant temp over here. What I mean by that is I could right click it, and I'm going to show you how to do this now. We're actually going to our charts layout, and I'm just going to pick this group here, group 2, and I'm going to add a series. I click on that. I would click on the actual blue text there, and then because I want to get from this vehicle alone, I would click on the little button there, and it's going to only show me the PIDs for this vehicle. So if I type in coolant, there's my engine coolant temp. I just highlight that, put in here. Now there's some interesting things here. So I can put on here 0 to 240. I can put the minimum at 20 because you may live in cold weather. It comes out from there. And then on the decimal point, I could go out 2 decimal points if we wanted to, but really don't need to. We'll just put 2 decimal points on it. And then I could change the color. In this case, I want to do pink. So we do OK, set up from there. So if I come back in there and it's running, I would actually show up in here. So I'm actually going to turn this on so you can actually see this at this moment. I'm going to start the log and see if our engine coolant shows up in there. Right now we're showing 109 degrees. Everybody see that right there? That's simple. That's how we put that in there. Okay, so like I said, we've got our temperature right there. It's in pink. We can see that. We'll show up there. In our gauge format, it shows us over here. There's a temperature as well right there. So it's in the different places. We can change the color if we want. We just did that. We can set up so we can see the PIDs. We're good to go at that point. So you should be able to put any PID you want in there as long as you're on your channel side first. You can put it on your chart versus time, your graph, or your gauge. All right, so what we want to do is actually add the IAT2 on a gauge, which is our downstream temperature. We're going to take the gauge that says MAF right there, it says pounds per minute. We're not using that because it's a speed density vehicle. So we're actually going to put in our IAT2 there. So we're going to do, we have to add it over here to our channels list first. So I'm going to go over here and add IAT2, inlet air temperature 2. There it is. I'll double click on it. It's now there in our channel format. Now we're going to come over to our gauge format, gauge layout. We're going to select that one, which is the MAF, and we're going to select that inlet air. I type in inlet air 2. There we go. And double click on it. We have it. Now I'm going to put the parameters. It has a minimum max. So we're going to make the max 200 because our downstream temperatures could get to 200 degrees if the intercooler wasn't doing its job. So we're going to put up to 200. It's in Fahrenheit, by the way. So when I come out of here, it's on the screen. And there we go. Now we have our inlet air temperature and we have our IAT2 out there. So now that we've got the gauge on there for the IAT2, we want to put some actual picture on there for us of our low, medium, and high. So on the colors, so we know when it's getting warmer, too warm, and really too hot, okay? So we're going to set that up in there. I'm going to basically start, I'm going to say from 100 to 130, we are level 1. From 130 to 160 would be our level 2, and 160 to 200, which will cover our scale, is going to be our color, okay? So that's set. Set that up in there. So now we have our colors. Okay, one of the most important things when you're data logging a vehicle, specifically with a Ford, is you want to data log the sources. Sources tell you what's going on and when things are happening. So what we're going to do right now, I'm going to go into the channels list and I'm going to grab those sources. So I'm going to click my little gear with the plus there, and I'm going to type in source. So you see there's all these sources here. We're going to double click on these: torque source, driver demand limit, torque error limit, torque max source, torque max protection source, throttle max source, throttle angle source, spark source, and fuel source. Now, the reason is anything that has source on it, when you're actually moving and logging the vehicle, if something goes wrong, it'll tell you what source it's using. So you can find out real quick in a diagnostic of what's happening by seeing what your source data tells you. So source data is very important. So I'd recommend data logging those in your channel format. So now we're going to go ahead and do the read on the vehicle. It's going to take about 20 minutes on the later model 18 and up. So we'll start the read, show you what's happening, and we'll come back when it finishes. Gather info first. That'll give us our VIN information. It'll give us our computer and everything else. And you notice it says internet required for that. It needs that to pull the server and picks up the software so we can actually read the vehicle. And that's on the transmission side. Okay. I'm going to select read, so it'll actually read both of them. You'll see it do the bootloader. You hear it turn off stuff in the vehicle. Now they actually starts reading. It'll be 9 minutes on the actual engine side and another 10 minutes on the transmission. So at that point in time, we're going to go ahead and stop on this and we'll follow back on in a minute. Okay, so now that we've completely read the vehicle, we're going to go ahead and save it. I usually put in the year of the vehicle, the date of the vehicle, what the vehicle is, and read file. Then I'm going to save it, which I saved here. We're good to go. Now we have the file read. We're ready to go. Let's go do some data logging on the road. Okay, so we're going to start a little test drive right here. I'm going to go ahead and start our scanner. Make sure that all our PIDs are going. Always observe your PIDs are actually populating. If it doesn't, repoll it. In this case, all of them are going. We see everything on the screen. We see our IETs. We see our actually EQ ratio, spark timing, everything, including our boost. Okay, so let's do a little test drive. Okay. All right. So optimum temperature when we're data logging and doing dyno testing is normally 170 degrees. So right now we're at 156. So we're actually going to let it warm up for just a minute before we actually go driving to do our testing.
Why do you want it to be?
Because everything, the motor, it's in warm up mode until about 170. When it's in 170 and above, it's in operational mode. So it's not something, we just tell people keep it over 170 for all your data. So if you're at 150, 160 and it's too cool, then it may add fuel or take away fuel depending on what the temperature is. So we normally use the 170 as our guide. So that way you're at a cold start, it's in warm, our Euro 2s are reading correctly, and you're good to go. We are ready to begin our drive at 170 degrees. We are above startup temperatures and everything is operational. Let's go drive. Nice and smooth acceleration on this thing. With that boost coming up, it's nice. Feel the torque, which is what moves the vehicle. So we're going to slow down a little bit and kind of roll into it. This is why standalone data logging is important. And we're going to switch to that now. I knew that was going to happen. That's why I did it. Okay. Check. Okay.
Okay, what's going on?
So what we're going to do right now is I'm actually going to use a standalone data logging on here. So we're going to set this up right now. So I'm going to stop this. I'm going to save this as my Raptor default. And what I'm going to do, connect to it, I'm going to write the standalone config to the device. Super simple. We're going to go here to our vehicle, MPVI2 data logging. We're actually going to write the channel config to it. Okay, channel config complete. I'll go ahead and stop at that point. I'm going to unplug this now. I'm going to set the laptop over here. I recommend at that point in time, unplug from the device, unplug from the vehicle. This cable's unplugged, so we don't have to do anything there. So I'm going to plug it back in. You'll see the light up, and we're back in business. Okay, now what we're going to do, we'll just leave this cable unplugged. We'll actually use the button to start our data log. Okay, so I'm going to turn around and get situated, and when I push the button to start data logging, it'll blink, 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 and once it's settled into a steady blink, it's recording. Okay, no laptop to bang around inside the cab. All right, so I'm going to turn it around. Really, right there would have been. I'm going to go ahead and push this on. If you watch, I push this button. 2, 3, 4, 5. There we go. I'll start the data logger. When we make the turn, we can actually get on a little bit. The data logger is on. Ready, set, go. Oh yeah. I'm going to go ahead and stop the log. All right. So we'll plug into the laptop once we stop and grab that data so we can take a look at it. Okay, let's go ahead and plug our cable back in. We'll plug it into the actual laptop and get our information. We're going to go ahead and grab the data off of there. We're plugged in back into it. Go to the device itself. Go to our logging files. There it is right there. We're going to save it as Raptor 2. Actually, Raptor 3. We're going to save it for Raptor 3. Close it. File open. There is our log. There's our good wide open throttle run right there. Got all the data we were looking for, all set to go. That's how we do standalone data logging without the computer banging around inside the cab. Our hope is you have a solid understanding of how to use the scanner and all its special functions and controls. It is such a powerful tool that is useful for every car on the road, even if we don't offer tuning support for it. If you have any questions about the scanner that we didn't cover in today's videos, please comment below and make sure to check the descriptions for any links mentioned in today's video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.